Hi, good morning everyone. Welcome to our live session, and today we are going to be doing a little bit of a twist on a classic, the pumpkin pie. We're going to be making a chocolate pumpkin pie. So what we're going to be doing is just adding some chocolate to kind of a traditional pie mix, and what we're going to do first is we're going to make the pie filling, then we're going to talk about the crust, and then we're going to be topping this with some bourbon brown sugar whipped cream. So there's a lot of different variations, so we're going to talk about that on the way, but let's get started with our filling. Okay, so it's kind of this time of year and we're seeing a lot of pumpkins starting to come about. So you can use a canned pumpkin puree, that's what I have here, or if you have some pumpkins, what I do is the pumpkins that I use to kind of decorate, my porch and the inside, when the season's over, what I'll do is I'll bake them in the oven. So I'll open them up and I'll put some butter on them, and you take the seeds out, and then I cover them. I put them in a pan until I bake them until they're soft, and then I kind of take the pumpkin kind of flesh out of the skin, and then I use that for my pie as well. You'll want to mill it because it can be a little stringy, and you could use any kind of a food mill, but you can easily make your own pumpkin puree, or you can buy it and it's just fine. The store-bought one is just fine. So I've got some pumpkin puree here, and I'm going to be adding some brown sugar and some cornstarch and some spices. So I've got some cinnamon in here, about a teaspoon, and you could add a little bit more if you like. And I also have some pumpkin pie spice, which I like to use. I also have about maybe about 3/4 of a teaspoon, but you can easily add more or less of these spices. In place of pumpkin pie spice, you can use a little bit of clove. Be careful, that one's strong. It can be a little soapy, and you can use some allspice and some ginger and some nutmeg too, or else you can buy the blend like I do. I just like to buy it and then I have it. Okay, so I've got some spices, some cornstarch, and some brown sugar, light brown sugar. Cornstarch I'm mixing in with the sugar because it's going to blend in a little bit better. If you ever mix cornstarch in something, you got those little beads, so mix it in with your sugar. If you pull your brown sugar out of the cabinet and it's gotten hard, don't throw it away. You can rescue it, but it's going to take overnight. What I usually do is I'll put a slice of apple in my brown sugar, and then it's going to soften overnight. So don't throw that out if it gets hard. If it's been in there for a while or a little bit uncovered, that's been known to happen. Okay, in goes the sugar and the spice. I'm going to mix this up, and you can mix this with a mixer on your stand mixer, but it's going to work out just fine mixing it by hand in your mixing bowl. Okay, so the pumpkin, it's bright and it's changing color a little bit. This is from our spices and our brown sugar. If you go a little heavier on the cinnamon, is going to be a little bit darker, but that's okay, however you like it. Okay guys, so nextly we're going to be adding our eggs, and we have some milk, some evaporated milk, and keep in mind your eggs need to be room temperature because we are going to be adding some warm chocolate, and warm and cold don't go together while there's going to be some seasoning. So pull your eggs out of the refrigerator about an hour before you use them, and then crack them right before you need them. If you forget, you can put the whole shell egg in a little bowl of warm water, and that's going to help bring them up to room temperature. Okay, so I like to mix my eggs in next, and then I'm going to be mixing in my evaporated milk. Okay, so guys, you can pretty much do this with any pumpkin pie formula, but I recommend using this one. It's got a little starch in there that's going to help with the binding because we are adding chocolate. It's got fat in it, and we're going to be adding butter as well. Okay, so mix your eggs in. Like I said, everything can be mixed by hand. Then we're going to pour in our evaporated milk. So you'll find a lot of different formulas for pumpkin pie, but you can definitely play around with them adding your chocolate. Okay, so this pie, we're going to be making it completely chocolate. You can do some swirling. You can take your traditional pumpkin pie filling recipe if you like it a lot, and you can take about maybe a cup or a cup and a half of the filling out, and you can add some melted chocolate to that and kind of marble it together once it's in the pie shell. Okay, so everything is mixed together pretty well, and I'm going to be adding my chocolate next. Okay, so I've got some chocolate that I had warming. Okay, what I did is I just brought a pot of water to a boil. I made a little double boiler, being careful that the water was not touching the bottom of the bowl because it can scorch the chocolate. And then I just melted some chocolate and butter. And this is going to add this very unique twist on this pie with the chocolate and the butter. Like I said, this is warm, so make sure that your eggs are not cold, otherwise you're going to have some chunking and it's hard to recover. You can kind of warm the mix over a double boiler, but it's easy to kind of have it, have the eggs at room temperature in the beginning. Okay, any questions, guys? Oh, okay. All right, let's go ahead and add the chocolate. I like to mix as I'm adding. My bowl has a flat bottom to it and my surface over here is a little damp. If it's sliding around, you can put a damp dish towel under it, or there's little holders. So I kind of stir as I go. As you can see, the filling's getting very chocolatey. Okay. All right, you want to get all of that chocolate out. Okay, so for the chocolate, what I'm using is I think it's here it is, 56%. And this is a semi-sweet chocolate. So 56% is kind of an everybody chocolate, and it's not too bitter, and it works out perfectly for things like this. Keep in mind when you see these numbers on the chocolate bar, when you get up to 70, 80, even 90, those are going to become more bitter the higher the number. So if you're looking for an everybody kind of semi-sweet chocolate, 56 is perfect, 55, 56. Okay, so this is our filling and it's ready to go in our pie shell. Okay, guys, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the pie shell. All right, mix that in. All right, and then we are going to set this aside. Okay, so you can use any pie plate. I got some aluminum disposals, but what you're going to want to do if you're using one of these disposables, it's a little flimsy, so you're going to want to put the pie on a tray so it's not bending it all on you. So let's go ahead and roll out our dough that I have, and you can use any pie dough, guys, and this is a little bit too big of a piece. So when you're rolling out your pie dough, be sure that you are not using too much flour, but you need enough where it's not gonna stick, okay? Pie doughs, you can flavor your pie dough. So something like this chocolate, you could add a little bit of cocoa powder into your pie dough. You could add it right in with your flour, and you can also add things like lemon zest and orange zest. And if you really wanted to do something fun with this and kind of modernize it even more, you could add a little bit of cayenne pepper, and that's going to give you some little kind of red speckles, and it's also going to add a little bit of spice, a little bit of hotness. But be careful when you're adding hotness. It goes very well with chocolate, but you can easily overpower the chocolate, guys. So be careful when you're going hot that you're not adding too much. Okay, so I'm rotating my dough around. I'm trying to make it as even as I can so it's not one of our states. And I'm also ensuring that it's not sticking at all too. So you know how sometimes you get that hump and that sticks and then it's going thin around the sides. Okay, so while I'm rolling this out, do we have any questions, guys? So like I said, any pie dough is going to work just fine. Your favorite pie dough, and you can, like I said, you can flavor your pie dough. You can add a little bit of flavoring to it. Cinnamon is nice too. This is just a basic plain pie dough that I have. Okay, guys. Any thoughts or questions? Everyone's so quiet today. Okay. All right, we're getting there. We don't really want this to be 3/4 of an inch. I mean, 1/4 of an inch thick. I always roll mine a little bit thinner, more towards in between 1/4 and 1/8 of an inch thick. So we want enough so we can crimp the edges of the pie. Okay, and as you can see, I don't have any sticking or tearing on the top here because my dough is nicely chilled. If you have a lot of sticking or tearing, that means that your dough got a little bit too warm. You want it to be bendable, so you want it to be chilled. So right out of the refrigerator is a little bit too hard, guys. You're going to want to leave it warm up just a little bit, but not too much because you may have some sticking or some tearing. Okay, so our pie dough is looking good. You've got enough flour on the bottom, not too much. Some doughs are going to be stickier than others. This dough is pretty pliable. But if, like I said, if you're having trouble with sticking or tearing, refrigerate. That means it needs a little more time to chill. Okay. Another thing to consider too, guys, when you're making your pie dough, make it the day before, and that'll ensure that it's chilled and you won't have a lot of problems with sticking and tearing. Okay. So what I like to do is put my pie shell, my pie tin, whatever I'm using, kind of upside down, and I use this as a guide. So you need about 1 inch if you're going to be tucking and crimping. Okay. Scrap, you can use this. You can use it for cutouts if you wanted to decorate with little cookie cutters. Scrap is perfect for that because it's not going to puff up as much because it's been used already, but it's still pretty good dough. Okay, in goes the dough into the pie pan. You're going to want to press it down into those little corners. Okay, I've got some overhang, which is perfect. It's exactly what I want. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be tucking and then I'm going to crimp. So you can leave the edges of your pie crust plain, or you can score it with a fork. You can use a spoon, however you want. You could even do some braiding. You can add some other pieces, some cutouts along the rim here. If you're adding another piece of dough on top of this dough as a cutout or a braid or a twist, be sure that you're putting a little bit of egg wash, just some egg with some water, and that's going to make it tacky so it can stick. So if you try to put dough on dough here, there's nothing that's going to help it be tacky and stick. Okay. Not fussing over it too much, but I definitely have enough crust to work with because I want to do some nice crimping here. Okay. So I'm just kind of pressing it in a little bit. I could feel some air gaps there, so I just went around. And some chefs will do this with a little piece of dough. You may see a chef do this when they're kind of finishing off the dough on the inside. If I can roll the scrap right into a ball. So you could take a little ball of dough, and you can use that to press as well. So you see some chefs doing that. Or you can use your fingers like I showed too. Okay, all right. So I'm just going to be doing a little bit of crimping. I've got a nice thick piece on top here, which is going to give me a decorative crust. Okay, guys. And you don't have to worry about making it perfect. It's going to bake and it's going to change shape a little bit, but it's mostly going to hold its shape. Okay, so for the pumpkin pie, this is, you know, baked pie, baked custard pie, and even though you're baking the pie with the filling in here, you're going to want to blind bake this crust a little bit, okay? And this is going to ensure that the bottom is baked all the way, and it's going to make sure that you have a nice doughy crust rather than a nice flaky crust rather than a doughy crust, okay? So what you do for blind baking is you want to weight this down a little bit so it's not puffing up on you. So I have some parchment that I used earlier. So you can save your parchment. You can use foil too. So what I'll do is I'll usually save my parchment and reuse it until it starts flaking. So you want to weight this down. Beans and rice are perfect for this, but you have to line this first with some parchment or some excuse me, or some foil. Okay, so you can buy pie weights, but you could easily buy a cheap bag of beans from the store. So these are perfect for weighting down your crust while you're blind baking. Then you don't have any puffing, and it's going to hold its shape very well. So you're going to blind bake this until it's not doughy on the inside. It's just going to turn a little golden brown. Okay, so save these beans, save them in a container, mark them for blind baking, and you can keep reusing them. Okay, so I blind baked at 350. Okay, this is how you prepare your blind bake shell. Okay, so when I pick this up, can you see that, guys? These foil pans are a little flimsy. You can double it, or you're going to want to hold it from the bottom or put it on a tray. Okay, these are great, especially if you're taking your pie somewhere. You don't have to worry about your pan, right? So that's why I decided to bring these in today. Okay, so this is a crust that I've blind baked. So as you can see, it doesn't have any doughiness. Let me compare real quick, okay, guys? I'm just going to lift this up. You can really see. So it's been baked. It's the same dough. You can see it's light and it's pale. It's kind of blonde looking, but it's been baked enough where it's not going to be doughy when it's finally baked. Okay. So I took off the beans and the weight and the parchment, and it was a little wet on the bottom, so I put it back in the oven and I kind of let it dry out a little bit. Very little browning around the top. Okay, so you're just looking for the wetness, and it's kind of like a par bake. Okay, this is perfect to add the filling. Okay, so let's get our filling. All right. So you're going to go ahead and fill your pie. All right, so I'm filling it all the way, and I've got a little leftover filling, so don't throw it away. You can bake it. If you have some oven-proof cups, some oven-proof ramekins from soufflés, or even those little glass Pyrex dishes are perfect. You can bake the leftover filling in a little water bath, put the cup in a little bit of pan with a little bit of water, and then you'll kind of have a little baked custard. So this pie, this chocolate pie, I bake it a little bit more delicate. I bake it at about 325, okay? And the pie this size, this is about a 9-inch pie, filled it up quite a bit. So it's going to take about an hour to bake, maybe an hour or 5 minutes, depending on your oven. But bake it a little lower than you would a regular pie, okay? So you can tell when the pie is done if you jiggle it and it does not look sloshy on the inside. It's going to look set. It's going to jiggle just a little bit. It's going to have a set jiggle to it. So if you observe the pie while it's baking, it's going to set around the edges. And then as you're shaking it in the oven, and when I mean shake it, just take a towel. This one's wet, but use a dry one. Kind of hold it here and kind of shake it a little bit when it's in the oven. Okay, so you'll see it's going to be set around the edges. It's going to be sloshy on the inside. So when it's set on the inside in the center, then you know it's done. But I think you guys are going to like this a lot. A lot of different variations that you can do with this. So like I said, you can add some citrus zest or some cinnamon or some spices to your crust. You can add that pumpkin pie spice. You can also add, use a flavored dark chocolate. There's a lot of them out there. And you can also add some things to your filling that are not going to jeopardize the consistency. And this could be some spices. You could add a little cayenne as well, or some herbs, and anything that's kind of dry. You wouldn't add something like strawberries because that could really jeopardize the filling. Going to make it way too wet. But anything dry or zest-like would work too. So keep in mind you can reinforce the flavor by adding flavor into your crust. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the finished pie that I baked earlier. Like I said, guys, be careful with these foil pans. They're a little flexible, so you're going to want to, you can double them, or you can put them on a cookie sheet. Okay, so this is our baked pie. It's nicely set. You can see that it's set all the way. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be finishing this off with some whipped cream. So I chose a brown sugar and bourbon whipped cream. With whipped cream flavors, it's pretty limitless, but I thought that would go really nice with our pie for today. So these two, you could use extracts, you could use a lot of different liqueurs, you could use Grand Marnier, you could use brandies, you could even do like a Kahlua if you wanted. Keep in mind, if you're doing something that's more like a cordial, like a Kahlua that's got a lot of sugar in it, you'll want to cut back on your sugar. So I've got some heavy cream. When you're at the store, if you see heavy cream or heavy whipping cream, it's the same thing. Okay, but you don't want to use something like half and half. So you can just whip this in your stand mixer. You can whip it by hand, or you can whip it with a hand mixer. Oh, this does not want to open for me. Let's try the other side. All right, there we go. Shake it up a little bit and put it in your mixer. So you guys are probably thinking, oh my goodness, she is going to be adding some brown sugar to the whipped cream. It's going to be grainy. It's going to dissolve and it's going to be delicious. You can use a dark brown sugar. I'm using some light brown sugar. Either one is going to work. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it started. So I made this a little sweet, and it's, you know, it can be whatever you want it to be. So while we're waiting for our cream to whip, do you guys have any questions on anything? Everyone's so quiet today. All right. So I'm going to leave it whip up a little bit, and then I'm going to be adding the brandy. Be careful with adding liquor or liqueurs, not too much, because you can separate the cream, but a little bit for flavor is okay. Extracts work nice as well, and you can use some citrus too, as we talked about. Okay. So once the cream is thick, you're just going to whip it until it's kind of a firm peak. I let it go a little bit past soft peak, not too much, because you can actually make butter with this if you let it whip too long. I've got a pastry bag with a large tip, and we're going to do some piping on our pot. Okay. So it's going to become thick. You can turn it up a little bit. I'm on like number 6 right now. You don't want to turn it up really high, because you could end up whipping some of the air, pushing some of the air out that you're whipping in. So just keep an eye on it. Whipped cream whips much faster than egg whites or meringue. Those take longer. You want to watch this so you don't turn it into butter. Okay, so it's becoming thick. It was frothy. It's becoming thick, and as soon as it kind of gets to a soft peak, I'm going to add a little bit of bourbon. Like I said, you can use brandy, Grand Marnier, whatever you like. Amaretto is nice too. So you can kind of make this pie your own, but keep in mind for chocolate lovers this holiday season or anytime, the chocolate pumpkin pie is sure to be a crowd pleaser. Okay, guys? So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of my bourbon. Like I said, not too much, guys. Don't get too carried away. This is the adult whipped, okay? All right, so it's whipped up nice and thick. It's kind of got a kind of ecru color from the brown sugar, and the brown sugar is completely dissolved. So you can add granulated sugar or brown sugar to your whipped cream. No problem. It's going to dissolve for you. Okay, guys? So I'm just going to finish off the pie by whipping, putting a little whipped cream on it, and then we'll cut a slice so we can see the interior. But we're getting ready to wrap up. So do you guys have any questions on anything? I've been so quiet today. Okay. All right, so I'm going to be just piping this. It's thick, so I whipped it to kind of a firm peak. I just go a little bit past soft, so I'm not over whipping. Okay, you can finish this off however you like. I just want to be sure that I have a little bit of whipped cream on each piece. Okay, let's go ahead and use this plate here, and we will put a piece on there and see how it looks on the inside. Okay, guys, so what do you think? Are you going to try the chocolate pumpkin pie? It's sure to be a crowd pleaser for the chocolate lovers that you're going to be having in your family or friends. Okay, so this is custard pie. It's going to be nicely set. You can get a clean cut out of this. All right. So you can cut them, you know, as small or large as you like. Okay. And this is our chocolate pumpkin pie. As you can see, it's beautifully set, a beautiful custard pie. Kind of speaks for itself a little bit. We could finish this off with some pecans because I don't think anything goes together better than chocolate, bourbon, and pecans, right guys? So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Any questions before we take off, guys? All right, thanks for joining us.